Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name's Randy. So today this video is going to be a little bit different. In this video we're going to talk about how we go about catching striper on Lake Mead. We've been fishing Lake Mead for 1 year now, so we started at zero knowledge of how to catch them. 1 year ago we got a boat in order to fish Lake Mead, and we're going to go over everything that we've learned in that time period. So we're going to start with locations. The most popular location in order to fish for striper on this lake is Government Wash. And then I'll pop a picture up right here. Government Wash, people do a lot of different things there. We'll go over some of the tactics that we use to catch striper a little bit later. Another area is the Echo Bay area. So once you go, if you're launching from Hemingway, you got to go up through the Narrows, and once you reach land on the north end, you go to the left. Right there is a series of islands in the middle of the channel. We've had a lot of luck catching striper there. The last area where we've spent some time striper fishing is the Temple Bar area. Now, we've trolled there maybe a couple of times, which we'll go over trolling and stuff later on, but the biggest striper boil we've ever seen on Lake Mead was up in Temple Bar. Okay, on to rods, reels, and lines. So, we use 20-pound spider wire braid, the translucent version, for all of our rods for the most part. I'll show you what that looks like. Here's the box. Now, everything that I go over in this video will be linked below, whether through an Amazon link or through the website's own link. There it is again, 20-pound, and it's white. They call it translucent or stealth braid, but it's plain white. We found that you don't need anything stronger than that when you're casting for striper or dropping bait down. We never really break off on striper, especially in Lake Mead. This is the same braid we use to do boils in Lake Mojave when you're catching 10-pounders, so it seems to work well. Now, the rods we use all medium weight rods. Whether that be spinning rods or bait casting rods, they're all mediums. So, like, we'll take this for example. This is an Abu Garcia Jordan Lee edition with a loose speed spool on the bottom. It's a medium weight rod with a normal any size bait caster. Now, all of our rods are mediums, whether that be our higher end rods or our lower end, because we do have both. And honestly, given the price difference between the Bass Pro combo that we have here, this is just the Bass Pro brand Pro Qualifier combo that you can get at Bass Pro, up to this St. Croix with a Shimano Curado. They both do the trick. For the price difference, especially if you're just starting out, I would say get a lower end combo, as most of them work just as well as the higher end stuff for this type of fishing. It's when you get into the bass fishing where you need a little bit different gear. For our reels, we have Shimano's, we have Lew's, we have the Bass Pro reel. They all work. A higher gear ratio is better. Like, we like the 8-to-1s. Get lining faster, especially during boils. Now, we do also use spinning reels. So here we have an old Shimano. It's about 20 years old, and it still works just fine. But we have this Shimano rigged up with that same 20-pound test. It's a 2500, a Shimano 2500. That's the size of the reel. But we use those for when we're fishing with bait, whether that be live bait or dead bait. The bait casters we use to cast things around, like these jerk baits, the spooks, the poppers, anything that you're casting around and reeling in quickly. Now, if you see me looking this way at all, I do have a note sheet in case I forget something, because I don't want to forget anything for you guys. Okay, on to our first strategy. So we're going to talk about fishing with bait for striper. Now, most bait fishing gets done in Government Wash. That's a fairly common area to do this, but theoretically you can do it anywhere that you're finding fish. So the first type of bait fishing we're going to do is we're going to talk about dead bait. So the most common dead bait that you see in this area is anchovies. and there's a picture of a bag of anchovies. So the anchovies, you can get them at Bass Pro, Sportsman's, Walmart, even some gas stations in Boulder City, I believe, have them, but don't fact check me on that. What we do with the anchovies, we're going to use this little fish lure as an example. And when we're prepping them, you're going to cut the tail off, you're going to cut the head off, so now you just have the main body of the anchovy. Now when you get the main body, you have to decide whether you want it into seconds. You have to decide whether you want it into halves or thirds. Then you go about cutting the main body in half or into thirds. Now we like doing it into thirds unless it's a very small anchovy, but everybody can make their own decisions. We keep the heads and tails and put them in a separate bag, which we use as chum. Now you can fish with the anchovies day or night. I know people have had success during the day just dropping anchovies straight down. But with the anchovies, we found it best, if you have a boat and can make this happen, we have green lights, which I'll show another picture of right here, that we drop down on either side of the boat about halfway down the column. And when we do this, the green light brings in the food that the shad eat, which then brings in the shad, and then you have the stripers come in. Here's a picture of our graph after doing that for a few minutes. But we've had some awesome nights doing this. I mean, we've caught fish after fish. We've had one night where we got to a point where we couldn't sit down because we were catching so many fish. Now that sounds awesome, but after 2.5 or 3 straight hours in the middle of the night of not sitting down and just reeling in fish, you start to want a little 5-minute break. But not going to complain. Okay, so when we're doing the anchovies, we use a 1/0 or 2/0, size 1 or 2 hooks. Either work. When you go about hooking them, you want to go under the spine and then out the other side. So anchovies have a dark line like this, just as the bait does. So you want to go under that and up through the spine on the other side. Just like, I don't know if you can see that. Just like that. That allows the bait to stay on better through bites, through dropping it down, through reeling it up, through everything. Now, sticking on dead bait, you can net shad in the back of government wash and freeze them on your own. So then you have the shad that the striper normally eat, just frozen and dead already. Some people use bait nets, picture, in order to keep their bait on the hook better. It's like a mesh webbing. We haven't found that to be necessary as long as you hook under the spine of the fish. Now, part 2 of the bait, the live bait. So the live bait that you can use in Lake Mead is technically threadfin shad, gizzard shad, and technically goldfish. However, I've never seen a goldfish in Lake Mead, so you get the shad via cast net in the back of government wash primarily. I'm sure that there are other places that you can net the shad. However, we always go to the back of government wash to do it. There are a few rules with that. The net cannot exceed 4 feet in radius. So, if the net's laid out like this, it cannot be 4 feet from this end to the very middle. It cannot be more than that. Right now, the shad in the wash, after talking to a couple people, are not easy to find or net. But there are some times in the year you can go out and catch hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them and use them for bait for striper. Now these shad are alive, so you do need a live well or a bucket or something to keep them alive. But when you're netting the shad and getting ready to use them as bait, we use those same 1/0 and 2/0 hooks. Can you see that? There you go. But instead of hooking it through the spine, like we did with the dead bait, you're going to hook it right here through the nose. Going through the nose like that. Going through the nose like this allows the bait to keep swimming. It doesn't jeopardize its main organs. This allows them to live longer, swim better, and ultimately and hopefully get you more bites. Now there's 2 ways that you can do that. will fish the shad with the hook through the nose. You can either free line it, which is a hook and the shad, no weights, no nothing. Just cast it out there and let the shad do its thing. Let him swim around. Let him do his little dancey dance for the stripers. Or you can utilize a Carolina rig. A Carolina rig works well if the stripers seem to be on the bottom, but if they're up in the column, we like using the free line method. It's easier to rig up, easier to use, and it's easy. It's fun. It's easy. You catch fish. You don't miss a lot of fish. The stripers don't seem to mind when the fish is on the bottom, weighted down, but they don't seem to bite as much whether it's a drop shot rig. They like it more if it's a Carolina rig over a drop shot. Okay, on to strategy number 2 of catching striper on Lake Mead. Casting. This is what everybody wants to do. So, when you see boils, which is primarily, you're only going to primarily cast at striper when you see boils. But when you're casting, you want to use things like, if they're actively boiling, you want to use things like spooks, like that, or you could use poppers. However, my favorite is this Headin', the Headin' Super Spook and the Super Spook Junior. I don't know if it's going to focus on that, but you get the gist of it. Another bait that works really, really well is jerk baits. I've found that this blue and gray color works well. There's one trip where we went out to Echo Bay and we saw 1 or 2 fish come up on the top, but it wasn't a full boil. And we'd go over there and we'd look for boils and we'd look down and we could see the stripers swimming around. Now, a spook's not going to work when they're not busting out the top of the water. So we picked up our jerk baits and we were popping them around, popping them around, popping them around. And you could see the stripers come up and nip at it and nip at it and just move it right at the perfect time for them to bite, which was super neat. Now, when you come to color choices on the spooks, we like bone white or white. Works for the poppers as well. Bone white or plain white or pearl white, anything of that sort seems to work the best. There was one day where we forgot the tackle box, so all we had rigged up was 1 white spook and 1 black spook. And trust me when I say that the black spook got 1 bite to every probably 10 that the white one got, whether that be bass or striper. So for the Lake Mead area, stick with your lighter colors: white, bone pearl, whatever it's called. Stick with those ones. They do get a lot more bites. Now, when you're looking for boils, if you primarily fish Lake Mojave for boils, those boils are hard to miss. You have seagulls diving everywhere. You have 10-pounders on the top of the water, right? Lake Mead does not. A lot of times there won't be seagulls, and all you'll see is these little black backs. They won't come out all the way out of the water most of the time. You just see the rolling of them. So if the desk right here is the top of the water, they'll be like this.
So cool.
Oh. I'm on. Oh, I'm off.
You want to be popping it really fast, and if you get a bite, I'd recommend letting it sit for a few seconds. As in this clip right here, you can see that the shad gets popped into the air, and then the striper comes back for it a few times. So a lot of times striper whack fish with their tail. So if it whacks your lure, if you let it sit for a few seconds, a lot of times they'll come back and actually pick it up and eat it with their mouths. Which I found that to work a lot better for striper than just continuously popping it, which does also work very well. Okay, on to the last and I'd say the most used way to fish for striper, and that is trolling. Most people troll government wash. Most people use A-rigs. You can also troll crankbaits and things like that. A-rigs or umbrella rigs are the most common. Ours are made by a gentleman named Rob here in Vegas. He goes by Rob Vegas Life on Facebook. And I'll show you what these look like. Now this is a Lake Mead sized Alabama rig. or a rig, umbrella rig, whatever you know it as. So it's all wire. You can bend it, but they don't break at all. Up to a swivel, a weight, and then you have some spoons with leaders to the fish with hooks. Now, on Lake Mead and throughout the Colorado River system, you cannot have more than 2 hooks on an Alabama rig. So, none of these little fish up here have hooks, as you can see. No hooks at all. That's just the fin. Only the bottom 2 have hooks. Now, Rob makes these by hand and sells them. I will link his Facebook down below in the description, along with everything else that we talked about in this video. He makes Lake Mead size and Lake Mojave size. The Lake Mojave ones are for the most part very similar, if not the same, besides the little fish with the hook. As you know, Lake Mojave striper get bigger, therefore the bait with the hook is also a little bit larger. Now, when it comes to gear for trolling, a lot of people you can utilize just a heavy fishing pole with the bait caster or a spinning reel, and that works just fine. You don't need to go blowing up a bunch of money or anything. However, we found the best to be dedicated trolling poles and reels. So here we have an Akuma. It's called a CW453CD or 453D. It's a dedicated trolling reel with a dedicated trolling rod, and we found these to work great. We've had no issues with either the reel or the rod. You can turn on a clicker. So let me loosen the drag. So as I'm pulling it out, you can't hear it, but if I turn this clicker on, which is what you want to do when you're trolling, if a fish pulls line, it makes that noise, which allows for you to know that you're getting a bite. Now, when you go about trolling, we use 50-pound braid. We use that because stripers tend not to be line weary. They are boat and motor weary, but not line weary. They don't seem to care about seeing the braid at all. Now, that braid on our trolling poles are not the spider wire white braid, the stealth braid. That is any old 50-pound braid that we can order for the cheapest that we can. We use a quick change in order to hook it to Rob's rig, so that then therefore you don't waste a bunch of line trying to get it on, and it seems to hold very well. You do have to be very careful while trolling about the depth. It seems about every 100 feet you go out, maybe 75 feet you go out from the boat, because these reels do have line counters on them. You have a line counter right here, so it watches your line as you go out from the boat. About every 75 to 100 feet seems to be about 10 to 15 feet deep. Is where your lure is 10 to 15 feet under the water. Now, that is very useful information because the rigs are not cheap, so you want to be really careful using them. They do get stuck on the bottom if there's a lot of brush or shrubs, which can cause issues if you get your line stuck. Sometimes they get stuck so bad, especially on Lake Mojave with the brush on the bottom, that we have to tie it off to the cleat and put the boat in reverse in order to try and break the line, because it's stuck down there pretty good. So in most places, in the red line that I'm going to show you here, going around Government Wash, you can be out anywhere between 150 to 200, 100 to 150 feet in this red line. Now, it's really nice to have a fish finder so you can see the depth and the contour lines and know what's coming up. There's one more picture I'm going to pop up of Government Wash. It's going to be here as well. There you have to be really careful about trolling. It can get to 10, 15 feet, so you only want to be out about 70 feet. And you want to hold your rod just to make sure that it's not bumping on the bottom. The rods, when you're trolling, they have a bend already, so it'll be like that. And then if it's bumping on the bottom, it can go like this, or it'll just grab and it won't come out. And then you have to turn the boat all around, reel in your other rig. The line that you see here on the bottom of these rigs, this is just a leader. This is a 25-pound fluorocarbon or monofilament leader, whichever you'd rather. We run fluorocarbon leaders. No specific reason why, just what we have. I know that monofilament stretches better when you have bigger fish, but in Lake Mead, you really don't have to worry about that. Now, let's go over a few rules and regulations. The use of 2 or more hooks for bait or flies is prohibited, is what the rule says. So, originally, we thought that meant you can't have 3 treble hooks on a bait. So, we cut the middle one off on our spooks and things. However, over the last year, we've learned that means that you cannot have 3 separate lures on a line with hooks. Like, that's why you can only have 2 hooks on your Alabama or umbrella rigs, because that's the rule. That's why you can have 2 leaders. That's why not all of those little fish can have hooks, which would be pretty dangerous for your hands trying to grab some fish. Another rule. So the limit on striped bass is a little bit weird. You can have 20 striper over 20 inches. Now, 20 inches isn't that far, so make sure you have a ruler. Under 20 inches, the limit is unlimited. You can keep as many as you want, which allows for you to have those days with the pictures that I've shown throughout the video of striped bass over striped bass stacked up. All of them were measured under 20 inches. We not once have hit 20 striper over 20 inches. So for the most part, you're pretty safe. You gonna bring me the fishy? Come on. Come say hello, Coda. Coda, say hi. Good girl. Here you go. If you guys enjoyed this video and want to see another video of me walking you through how to bow fish on Lake Mead and Lake Havasu, please drop a comment, leave a like, and subscribe. If you made it this far into the video, thank you. I enjoy making these videos, and we really appreciate your support. If you want any of these products, I'm not sponsored or selling any of them. However, I will include links in the description below of this video in order for you to click on, look, and buy these products. Yeah. So if you'd enjoyed this video, check out another one, subscribe, and check out the links below. Thank you.